What is your favorite cut of chicken?
There's no such thing as a cut of chicken unless you're in Japan.
There is. That's where I was going with it.
The oyster.
The oyster. What is the oyster? I think I know what the oyster is.
Come on.
It's a big cut, right?
No, it's little chickens are so tiny.
Like when you're ordering a chicken, it's always like there's a little pocket in there
on the butt,
and you go in.
The best.
Yeah, and
the butt,
and you kind of fish it out, or if you have a whole bird, you can do it raw, you do it cooked, but yeah, it's like this tender, it's flavorful. For the oyster, my daughter would say, any cut that she can gnaw on the bones. If I want to surprise her and I say, you know what we're having for dinner, she goes, bones. Anything that she can gnaw on,
she's gonna have nice looking teeth, good expanded palate. I think my favorite chicken cut that's underrated is the balls. They're tiny.
Stop.
But they're so good.
You're so ridiculous.
They give you the life force
when was the last time you had chicken
of a
balls?
Chicken. I mean, honestly, only whenever you process your own birds. It's one of those cuts that, actually, you probably eat them every time you cook a whole chicken. They just kind of melt inside the cavity of the chicken, and you just accidentally consume them, and you're like, damn, that bite was the best in the whole bird.
Or like if you're eating broth.
Yes.
Then you're getting some sort of a broken down
chicken
ball
balls.
Juice.
Okay, what about you? What's your favorite?
The feet. Bones. Definitely.
Well, okay, well, what were you saying about Japan, though?
Oh, I was just saying that Japan, I learned yesterday that in Japan, they cut up chickens into cuts, like as if it was a cow.
Yeah, like 300 cuts.
Yeah, like 300 cuts.
Break it down, whole carcass, kind of like our own anatomy, or breaking down a cow. Cut your tenderloin.
I appreciate
your
the
ribeye,
perspective.
your chicken ribeye.
That you could get so much value out of a tiny little 5-6 pound bird. Like, I think that's kind of admirable that they appreciate it that much instead of just like rip it to shreds and gnaw on a thigh or whatever.
True. A slab.
A slab. We had somebody email us this week asking for a slab of bison. And I was kind of insulted by it. And Taylor was like, it's cultural. Come on.
It's probably a
and
brick.
I'm like, I'm not responding. There's no such thing as a slab of bison. No.
All right, well, let's get back on chicken. Why are we here? What are we doing?
Well, it's been 2 years, maybe 3 years since the last time that we were here talking about chicken. And I think a lot of people actually really enjoyed our chicken episode. And we have since shut that program down, reimagined it, and relaunched it. And so this is our chicken 2.0. Like, we need to talk chicken again because so much has changed. So that's why we're here. So we got Robby, we got me, Taylor, and we're going to talk chicken. I guess we could just start by saying, like, whoa, what happened? What happened? Why did we stop selling chicken in the first place? And how did we get to this place that we're at now? Robby, tell us the story.
Yeah, why did you break everyone's heart by pulling our original chicken product?
It's all fingers at me. Well, I think we obviously, Katie, you referenced the prior podcast that we did on chicken and why we were getting into it in the first place and what our values were and who we were partnering with and that it's a complex environment and industry, and we'll probably get into some of those details, try to have some new stuff and maybe repeat some things today, but ultimately changing the path of a broken system is really difficult. And the partner that we aligned with in that original journey went out of business. And when they go out of business and you have no supply, then you stop selling those items. And that's really the short version of a long story. But they took a big shot and didn't stick the landing. And but I think that we learned a lot in working with them. And so some of those values carry over into what we've created this time. With this program, and some of the learnings do as well. And so in response to that, instead of partnering with an operation and aligning with what they're already doing, we went around the country, and you went on more of those trips than myself. So thank you for joining the rest of our team in doing that. But we literally went coast to coast and all over the country, interviewing and talking with and engaging with existing chicken producers And then simultaneously built out our own protocol, which generally exceeds the standards by any one of those groups. So we look working with the best folks to put birds on the ground and raise them against the best protocol. One that didn't exist and that meets our own standards and exceeds the standards of the program that we had initially when we were working with a singular vertically integrated partner. So
what do you mean by protocol? What, like if I didn't know what a protocol was, how would you define it, and why does Force of Nature have a protocol if there's already all of these other standards that exist that we could have adhered to in the first place?
Well, typically, a protocol in the common sense is like a series of standards that you require. It's like our own, it's like our guidelines, our non-negotiables for the program. So we go through raising conditions and diet requirements and conditions on the ground and the genetics of the birds themselves and the life cycle and lifespan and transportation and use of chemicals and pesticides and pasture management and on and on and on and on. And we set expectations that, we basically looked to, what does the organic standards say? What does, the highest level animal welfare standards say? What does the USDA say when it comes to something like pasture raised or free range, or what is the antibiotic free standard? And we incorporated all of the best attributes of all of those into our own singular protocol. So it exceeds all of those standards individually and collectively, and sets a really high mark. And the reason nobody's doing it isn't because there's just the industry's rife with bad farmers who aren't, trying to serve themselves, the animals, or consumers. It's because the industry is so challenged by the huge players and the commodity mindset that has instilled and indoctrinated a belief in everybody that everything has to be cheap. And if you want to do things that are valuable and values oriented, that it just won't work in chicken. Which is why we've seen the cost of chicken decline precipitously to being a sign of prosperity, to being the cheapest, most common protein available, because we've industrialized the heck out of it. And so what we're basically doing is saying, no, we're going to reinstill what we believe to be the highest standards in all of the most important areas of raising an animal and a protein food source, and do it all at the same time. And it's going to make it more expensive, and it's going to make it harder, which is why we're working with some of the best folks out there already, and we're working with multiple of them, so that there's, the risk is spread and the opportunity is spread, and that there's some scale to it that creates some, both some synergies and some security for everybody. And then we're doing it behind our brand, because this is what consumers expect for us. Not many people can charge this price for chicken, but the consumer that understands and believes in Force of Nature knows that our standards and ideals are the highest in the industry, and we can crack the door open and leave an opportunity for others to follow and create that momentum by establishing momentum behind some of these new and innovative ideas.
This price for a chicken, I feel like, just to clarify, we have one of the most expensive chickens on the market, and we need to talk about why that is, but it's the true cost of the bird. We're not offsetting it, subsidizing it, we're passing it forward to the consumer. So I want to make sure that we cover the value of it. But I also think that in this story we're telling, when we had to stop selling chicken 2 years ago, that was like a hit to the business, to the top line, right? And so a lot of companies, the temptation would have been like, well, shit, let's just plug in another supplier and maybe we'll compromise our integrity a little bit just to continue filling that pipeline. But I think it was really interesting that we had that moment where we had to reflect on our own values and our own integrity. And we decided, just like on one of our founding principles of Force of Nature, feed others as you wish to be fed. There was nothing out there that we wanted to eat ourselves and feed our family. So it made that decision, which could have been very tempting for other businesses, very clear. We're stopping chicken. The time is not right. But all that work on the back end has culminated to this very moment.
Yeah, that's a good point. We were supposed to be filling, in our industry, it's called a reset when you get a new product into a new account. And so, we were supposed to be resetting into the largest natural foods retailer in the country. And instead of just going to the next lowest bidder to make them to fill the orders and keep the business going, we just said, sorry, there's nothing that meets our standards. And then we spent the next year and a half or 2 years trying to build something that had never been built.
Well, I want to dive into the standards. I think it's important that we look at all the things that you touched on. So we talked breed, feed, living conditions, health and welfare, processing, and then just stories around all of these things too, I think are really important. I don't want this to be like a super technical podcast. I think that we need to get into the nitty gritty of it, but I want to make sure that it's not, I don't know, snoozy. I mean, we think chicken's really cool and interesting because we've been like diving into this for so long, but let's make sure we don't get caught up in just super technical stuff too. So let's start with breed. Y'all want to start with breed? So when we were in the car, Taylor brought up a really good point about breed. I'm going to let you explain it, actually.
I don't even know what it was.
Okay, well, I'll do it for you then. So the majority of chickens on the market, I would say 99 point, I don't know, what's this? Is it 99.6? Is that the stat? Is that the stat we're all comfortable with?
Overwhelmingly,
it has been agreed upon that all of the chickens on the market, especially, like in grocery, are a breed called Cornish Cross. And the Cornish Cross breed this is something we touched on in the first podcast. The Cornish Cross breed was a bird that has been created by man. Am I cueing you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, nowhere in the evolution of species, Charles Darwin would have never predicted a Cornish cross bird to exist because it's in opposition to natural selection. And so it's truly, instead of God food, God creature, it's man-made. It's like the original GMO animal in the sense that it's been tinkered with the genetics and selectively bred and engineered by humans for one purpose. And that is not for the health of the animal or the benefit on the environment. It's not even for us. It's not even for like the nutrient density that will be passed on to consumers, or the
So what
attributes
is it for?
of flavor. It was bred for production, for industrialization. So putting out as many units as efficiently as possible, as cheaply as possible, without, considering those other holistic attributes of what it means to raise and eat a sentient being.
Well, let's talk about there's probably should talk about what industrialization even is. Because I think that's a term we throw around a lot and maybe don't anchor to. So like if you think about what chicken farming would have looked like in a historical context when we had ample farms that were multi-species and were raising crops and animals all at the same time, and what we think farming still is like today, but it's not because it's been industrialized. There would have been a bunch of maybe dozens to hundreds of chickens on an individual farm, and commercial or professional ones might have still had thousands, but you wouldn't have had 40,000 birds living in a footprint the size of a large garage for their entire life. For only, in the case of like most of the fried restaurant chains, 38 days to create exactly homogeneous birds that are exactly the size proportion so that every order of nuggets or whatever cut that you're getting looks exactly identical to the others. And so that's, industrialization is how do we mechanize, how do we treat living sentient beings like widgets and make them maximally consistent and predictable. So I know exactly my feed conversion ratio of how much food, how many inputs I need to bring in to maximize my output. And to your point about what got selectively bred, well, you breed for these traits of industrialization, which in this context are, we want the birds to be white so that you don't see that they have tiny little feathers that remain behind even after you pluck them. But if they're white, they're sort of invisible to the eye, so consumers don't notice and you're less likely to be put off by it. We bred them, for some reason, the most popular cut of meat is the breast, which I don't understand because I think the dark meat is so much better. But in any case, breasts became very popular, so we bred them specifically to have very large breasts. And to your point about, the insult to Darwin, so large that it actually impedes the bird's ability to be mobile and walk around and live a normal, functioning life.
Which makes it really critical to kill at a certain point. Like these birds cannot physically last longer than that typically that 38-day.
That's part of it. We also bred in a gene in a study back in the day at Cornell University. They found a gene that would be considered consistent with like a dwarfism gene, but it's the opposite. It makes them morbidly obese really fast. So we were able to take the life cycle of a bird down from a few months to a few weeks, which makes it, again, if you can optimize them to grow bigger or faster on cheaper feed, you can make more money. So we chose that to breed in as a characteristic. And when you're doing all of these things, there's unintended consequences, or maybe intended consequences depending on how nefarious you are. But we allowed certain biological imperatives to be bred out. They don't procreate. They can't reproduce. I mean, if you want to know a sign, like certainly you can look at the data and you can say that it takes us, a handful of birds today to get the same nutritional density of a bird that a chicken that our grandparents would have eaten, right? Like the birds are just less healthy, but they're also like, what is the determinant of health that justifies an animal being not able or not interested in breeding? And then they don't evade predation. They used to literally have to impose feed rations on these birds because they would eat themselves to death, because that's what they've bred that trait in. So they would rather sit at a feeder and eat while another chicken comes up behind them and pecks at them and potentially harms or even kills them than evade predation. I mean, these are fundamental biological necessities. So like, this is what industrialization has done. You treat a bird like a widget, you cheapen the inputs, you get them bigger, faster, you breed all of these, you target all of these characteristics, and you take whatever unintended consequence, like they're not healthy, their organs don't develop fully, their bone structures don't develop fully, they live sad, sedentary lives. The consumer has a bird that is imparting less nutrition to them, generally carrying with it more toxins because of some side effects of the system. When you look at the feed and you look at the treatments and medications that the birds get, and then of course the decline in nutritional value. Like those are all, we're happy to accept those trade-offs because now we have white birds with big breasts that grow fast.
Super cheap.
They don't go fast. They don't go at all hardly, but they grow fast, excuse me.
I think one of the things that we don't really talk about with this type of breed of bird is their lack of purpose in life. Like you just said, like they're infertile. They don't desire fertility, even if they could. They don't have any ecological impact. And it's really easy to have like a lack of empathy for their type of living conditions because they literally are, they're widgets in a cog. Like it's so sad. And we've literally taken away all purpose from them except to feed us.
Yeah, I mean, two things come to mind. Who benefits from the industrialization of an animal? Only one person, the industrialist. So it's the corporation. Like, that's all that matters. And secondly, yeah, when you're talking about like the general greater purpose of a chicken, like with every other animal that's naturally occurring, there's all these attributes that humans since the start of time have tried to adopt. Like we were just talking about, like being strong as an ox, or like you run fast as a horse, or, like you got the heart of a lion. I've never heard anyone pull a positive attribute of a chicken and be like, you're embodying
calling somebody a chicken
industrial chicken.
Yeah,
it is an insult.
To the contrary. Yeah.
And so like even Katie and I were thinking like, well, maybe the industrialist wants, like, they're like, I wish my employees were chickens. I wish my employees would embody the attributes of chickens because they're just like so easily exploited and manipulated and controlled. But yeah, there's no positive attributes of this animal in that industrial context and setting.
Yeah, it's pretty heartbreaking.
Well,
so
sorry, but but I think the other point to your point is like why is it so pervasive? Why has that been allowed to be the case? And I think the market is probably the overriding factor. It's not all that, the big bad wolf like Tyson or Purdue or somebody has the level of influence. Like there are a lot of independent producers that are doing cool things, pasture raising or doing different stuff that are still using these birds. And the question is why, if they know better. And the reality is like farmers in America are struggling. It is a very difficult job. And most folks are struggling to get by with less and less money on the farm. And so when it's like you have to choose your battles, and you have this breed of chicken out there that it'll grow faster on cheaper feed, and therefore you'll have more more inventory turnover, more birds to sell in a year that have higher margins on each bird. That's nearly impossible to break away from. Otherwise, using any other breed almost makes it financially impossible for them to pursue, because they take longer to grow, and they take more feed, and they take more time. And so, the farmers are victims in this too. Like, they're stuck because the consumer expectation is that chicken is cheap as shit. The expectation is that you walk into the big mass retailer down the road in your neck of the woods, and you can get a $5.99 fully cooked rotisserie chicken right next to the register. It's so cheap, it can be an impulse buy.
In a plastic bag.
Cooked, oh yeah, cooked and warmed up in a nice plastic bag. I mean, full of all kinds of things that are definitely going to kill you. But in the near term, your pocketbook won't be as impacted by it. Meanwhile, we're selling our chicken and a lot of local producers that are trying to. We're not the only people in the universe trying to break the mold, but we're the largest scaled ones. But there's folks doing that. You go to a farmer's market and you buy a non-industrial chicken raised in a real and a setting that is appropriate for chickens, and we'll talk more about that. And you're paying over $30 for a frozen whole bird. Oh, yeah. So you don't get all the cuts. They're not all fresh. It's not as convenient. You got to cut it yourself, and it's quite a bit more expensive. And again, the market factors, from 1940 to today. So basically, our grandparents' generation to today, we eat 86% of the red meat that we used to eat. We're eating less red meat, but we eat 350% more chicken. So we've driven down the cost of chicken, and consumers are trading for it and eating more of it. So we've created a system where the consumer is actually the catalyst. It's because the consumer expects, and we built an entire market around chicken being inappropriately cheap, that it perpetuates, even against the will in some cases of the farmers or the folks at the helm of the system. It perpetuates these unfortunate realities that we're gonna break open here.
So clearly, Force of Nature doesn't buy Cornish Cross birds. Let's talk about the breed that we have chosen and why.
You've seen them.
We've gone down this path.
You explain how and you've seen the Cornish Cross behave. We've raised a couple.
Oh my God, the story.
Ignorant times. So, like, what do we?
I guess we could just start with
paint a picture. A nice nightmare. If you have children in the car, maybe distract them for a little while.
I have seen all types of poultry systems everywhere, from like super highly industrialized, where you have to be wearing a hazmat suit, shower in before you go in, shower out when you go out, wash your feet in sanitization baths, full face coverings, all the way to the complete opposite, which would be, like a non-industrial system where you're on pasture, birds are roaming free. Definitely no sanitization bath. You are just out in nature alongside birds. And in the industrial model, of course, those are all Cornish Cross. I think one thing that we didn't touch on that I think is so interesting, a piece of this puzzle, is that the system, the industrial system, is so complex, and it starts early. It starts in the hatcheries. And then, it goes into raising facilities. There's transportation, there's processing, and then there's packaging. The one part that we didn't touch on yet that I think is really interesting is just the processing piece, the industrialization of it. Like Robby was talking about how important it is that all of these birds are the exact same size, the exact same format. Their breasts are the exact same depth. And that is critical in these industrial systems, because the processing facilities are literally set up for the exact size bird, exact orientation. Like if a bird doesn't fit the model, it won't fit into the machine to get the certain part ripped out of it. And they'll have to throw it in the dog food pile. And so, if a bird is 0.1 ounce larger than the bird right next to it, it gets pulled out of the system. It's useless because it can't continue down the machinery. And that is just wild to me. Anyway, So I've seen it all. I've seen the really, really ugly stuff, and it makes you go home and cry, or throw up on the floor of the place. And I've seen some really beautiful stuff. At the ranch, we have just been like so curious over the last 8 years that we've tried pretty much everything. We're like, what are these Cornish cross birds? Why would anybody want to raise them? So we've raised birds. We've raised Cornish cross birds alongside heritage breed birds, and the differences were alarming. The Cornish cross birds would sit at a feeder all day long, never wanting to get up, never wanting to move. If we were moving them to a different part of the pasture, they would just stay there and we called it sucked under, because we had these bizarre mobile coop things, which we don't have anymore. They would sit there and be pecked to death from the heritage breed birds.
I believe y'all likened it a bit to a gang war.
Yes.
Where the Cornish cross birds were on the losing end of, they weren't out competing the more genetically suited birds for living in a natural environment, like on a pasture.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It was actually cruel for them to be living on pasture. They absolutely did not thrive in a pasture setting at all. They would get thorns in their feet and not pick them out. They would just leave them there and get infected. It
was like watching a dog fight between a Chihuahua and a wild wolf. I mean, that's the delta we're talking about as far as athletic superiority.
So sad.
Yeah.
It was cruel.
It was super cruel. But the birds that we chose for Force of Nature are they're a slow growth heritage breed bird. They're beautiful. They're lively. They're full of joy and excitement. They fight like crazy. We don't pull out males from females, so they're always all together. So we don't sex. Is that, am I saying?
No sexting.
I always say sexting, and everybody's like, it's not sexting. Anyway, it's no sexting. And
why is that important?
That's what we do.
What does sexting do?
We sexting?
On the phone.
You and me?
Oh, geez.
Yeah, naughty pictures.
When Katie's visiting poultry suppliers, you're sexting with her, Taylor?
Exactly. She sent me a picture of those breasts. Chicken breast? Wait, what are you talking about, Taylor?
Wow, this got...
Okay.
Let's try to bring this back. So, but like, because this is about to get dark when we talk about what sexing actually is.
You go for it. It always makes me cry.
No, it's terrible. So to Katie's point, birds, the industrial system wants birds in perfect uniformity. So you want all males or all females, so they'll grow the same size at the same rate. And these, you have a few breeding stock, and everything else is what you're selling. And so they're not going to be bred. You don't hold males or females back for breeding. It's just like somebody wants to buy males because they want a certain size. They grow faster, bigger, whatever. And the whatever sex is undesired in that particular context continues on the conveyor belt and goes into a grinder while they're still alive. It's called maceration.
At 1 day old.
At 1 day old. They hatch them. If they're the wrong sex, they die. They get gassed. They get ground. It's awful. And so for us, it's just like we want to, we live in a world where we're trying to create a system that can scale and grow a lot of birds. There's an element of industrialization to that. It's just chickens are supposed to be in Southeast Asia, not here. So it's like there's compromises that we're gonna have to make. But I don't want anything to do with a system that doesn't that minimally emulates nature. And one thing that I don't want to see is birds just die at 1 day old. I think that's a welfare issue. I think it's just ethically wrong. I think it's gross. I think there's a place for males and females and groups together. And anyway, it's a small thing about our protocol, potentially, depending on your views, but it's one of many small things that are important to us that we're not supporting a practice that I think about the consumer. I'm like, what is the consumer looking for? What do they expect? What are they thinking? And if they were to be shoulder to shoulder with the bird or the person at every step of the way, would they be proud of the system or would they be disgusted? And I think if every consumer were to be a part of the first day of life of a chicken and to see that step, they'd be disgusted. So that's removed from our program. There's no sexing.
Right. So going back to the breed. So we have a slow growth heritage breed, no sexing. and they're literally bred for natural environments. So like I actually thrive within a pastured setting, or a silvopasture setting is actually more how I would say it. Um, their slow growth means that they are able to develop super strong bones, super strong organs. So we're actually like eating healthier birds. And so we talked about the Cornish Cross is the exact opposite. You know, they can barely hold themselves up. These heritage breed birds are strong up until the day of slaughter. I mean, like there's within the industrial model, like you can't go one day past a slaughter date. And with these birds, I mean, I think our last run was like 12 days late to slaughter. And it's fine because they are lively and wonderful and having wonderful lives. And their bodies are super strong, and there's no problem with them continuing to live on.
Well, the breed is so important to that foundation because they have to have strong bones and strong muscles and lungs and organs like your heart as well to be able to go outside. And we want them to go outside because we want them to forage, and we want them to live natural lives and have natural impact on the land and get real sunlight and eat bugs and grubs and scratch the ground and dig in the grass. And we want them to be older because, you know, not only are they healthier, but they've had more blood pumped through their veins, through their muscles to impart more minerals and more nutrients. So they're healthier. They're not only healthier themselves within their life, but they are going to be a healthier product for an end consumer to consume and get more benefit from. And more flavor.
So if the industrial bird is being slaughtered at around 38 days, what does the forced nature protocol look like?
You're bouncing around. I got to go scroll up to the...
I think one of the problems, we just tend to think of chicken and food as like macronutrients. All right, protein, cool, check. Maybe we consider micronutrients, secondary, tertiary compounds, but like what we're not really thinking of is the life force that's within these animals. And certainly there's more to food than there. You know, food is information. We know this. Food can make us sick. Food can make us healthy. And so like, who would ever choose to eat a sick animal under the understanding that would add to our own vitality? It doesn't work that way, right? So like these birds that you're describing, the force of nature sources, they're raised in conditions that are conducive for life. They're emanating with life. Like let's feed that to ourselves and our community.
I think what's interesting about that concept is the Cornish Cross bird is bred to be sick terminally. And these heritage breed birds are bred to thrive and be resilient in the sort of conditions we want chickens to be raised in. That's a huge difference. So you're screwed from day one with a system where the starting ingredient was designed to be sick. And candidly, if you were to abandon these birds in nature, they would grow extinct. They need human interaction to live, versus the heritage breed birds would go on and thrive on their own and could live a full life, whereas a Cornish Cross could not live a full life. Our age requirements, Katie, so we have a minimum 51 day, meaning you can't process a bird before 51 days. And like I said, like Chick-fil-A is getting birds at 38 days. So in reality is on the ground, most of our suppliers, you know, again, we're pretty flexible with it, are harvesting birds between 60 and 72 days. So if you think about what that means, everything we just said, we explained why that makes a healthier bird. It's living a longer life. It's more fulfilled, more nutritious, all that stuff. But it's more cost. That's another, almost 30 days, 20 to 30 days of feed that have been put into these birds. It's another 20 to 30 days that they're filling a space that a new batch of birds can't be coming in on. And so again, it's like, it's a better bird, but it's a more expensive bird.
Let's talk about feed. Feed is like the hottest conversation right now. Everybody wants to act like they understand how complex our food system is, but until you actually go to a feed mill and talk about transitioning them to new practices, you will never understand the depth upon which these things are built to adhere to like an industrial model. So when we think about food or feed, what has changed, if anything, from our current model to our past chickens?
Or to just the industry standard.
Or to all of it.
Yeah.
Give it all to me.
I think the background story here is, a long time ago, there was a farm bill introduced that was designed to help farmers, and then over the decades since that time frame, it's kind of been co-opted by big corporations, and the farm bill now exists to support and perpetuate the production of falsely cheap corn and soy. So tons of U.S. tax dollars go in to support a system that ensures that corn and soy gets grown even when the prices are so low a farmer couldn't make a profit, or when they're grown in the wrong context and the wrong environment. It doesn't really matter what it is. We just want people producing an abundance of corn and soy, which makes it really friggin' cheap. Which is why, as you know, you see corn and soy showing up in everything inside the grocery store. Corn syrup is, high fructose corn syrup's number one source of calories in the U.S. There's a lot of reasons. The ethanol as a fuel source, which is a completely bogus idea, exists because we're trying to justify the creation of cheap corn. Well, how does that impact our chicken protocol and what's going on here? Well, the birds that we were just talking about in that breed was bred to be optimized to run on corn and soy, or to grow on corn and soy. Why? Because it's the cheapest thing out there. And there's, financially pros to that, but otherwise, there's a bunch of other cons to it. And so for us, I think we want to look at that and we want to say, like, what is the feed source long-term? What's the feed source that makes the healthiest bird? What's the most appropriate for a heritage bird that wasn't, a few generations prior to the selective breeding to run only on corn and soy? What can they thrive on, and how can that be potentially different if it's necessary and appropriate for a variety of reasons? So that's why corn and soy is prevalent. With the feed and chickens specifically, why are we even talking about it? Well, I think most people aren't aware that the impact of feed, both in chickens and pigs too, monogastrics, turkeys as well, monogastrics. So, animals that are the omnivores with single chamber stomachs, just like us, as opposed to ruminants like bison or beef, where they have a multi-chamber stomach and they can break down things that we can't, like grass and cellulose. But these monogastrics, they eat tons and tons and tons of feed, and the impact of that is there is more land impacted by the feed growing than there is impacted by the raising of the animals. So you have these barns or these fields or pastures where you raise tens of thousands of chickens. You might have 40 times more land that'll never see a chicken peck or scratch it, but that is used for raising those birds. And so when we're talking about the impact and the sustainability and the holistic impact of a system on the world around it, with chickens, feed is a bigger impact than how you raise the chickens themselves. And so much of the conversation of late has been shifted towards, is it pastured? Is it free range? Is it welfare? Is it a mobile coop? Is it fixed? Are the doors open? Like, what's happening on the farm? How are you managing the legumes of waste and, the overload of potential nitrogen in systems and all these things? These aren't irrelevant. They're very relevant. But again, much like breed, and Cornish Cross is 99.9% of it, 99.9% of the feed is going to be corn and soy. And it's another one of those sort of, well, that's just too big of a hill, too hard of a battle to take on. We just have to accept that, it's not just corn and soy, but it's coming from the most industrialized system. So go back and listen to our other podcasts on what is regenerative agriculture and what are the fundamental principles. We're talking about heavy tillage. We're talking about heavy applications of herbicide, pesticide, fungicide, fertilizer multiple times a year, devastation of habitat, soil loss, disrupted water cycle, all of the toxins that you just don't want anything to imagine going into the ocean, all the things, that is the biggest impact of raising chickens, is all of the horrifying, catastrophic, negative externalities that come from raising feed. And to us, again, it can't be ignored. Not only can it not be ignored, we're getting back into chicken in hopes of actually tackling that as the biggest, most important part of this effort and this project, to prove out an alternative to super commodity chemical industrial agriculture, corn and soy production, as the standard bearer for what you feed all chickens and all pigs on the planet. There has to be an alternative path that's more appropriate, more ethical, more sustainable.
when Kirk and I were in Avery, when we were in Pennsylvania checking out a chicken supplier, it was great. We were like, okay, great. We went and visited the supplier. We're all fine and good. But what we really want to go to is talk to the mill. And so we drove to the mill. I set up a meeting with their, like executive team or whatever. And we're sitting around the table, and it became, the reality of the feed mill system sort of like was shocking to all of us. And Kirk pulls out his calculator and he's like, okay, how many, like he was basically trying to figure out how many acres of land of feed that were required to feed a certain number of our flocks. And he was like, okay, so the flocks are taking up, let's just say 5 acres of land, and we are impacting tens of thousands of acres of land on the feed supply end. And that was a moment, I feel like this aha moment for Kirk, where he was like, I'm ready to like tackle this. Like this is not okay. And it was like almost like a rallying moment for us of like, we have something really, really big to work on here. And it's, of course, the chickens, the animal welfare, all the chicken itself, all of that stuff matters. But it's this land piece, this feed piece that is really like the part where we're going to have the biggest impact on ecosystems.
Yeah, no doubt. And then I think, it's so challenged that finding a starting point is really difficult.
Yes.
I think, we're doing a lot of nutritional testing, and we'll probably go into that on a different episode because we're going to run out of time to talk about it. But, the absence of toxins and all of these horrifying things and the presence of all of the good things that you want to see more and more of, we're going to be looking into, and we're going to be testing and getting these programs established so that we can work on alternatives to feed. But to start, we had to make a decision. What's available today that we can begin, that we can get comfortable with to move forward from and work towards raising the bar. And we were able to find some I'm throwing air quotes up here, regenerative sourcing of feeds like corn as an example. But those systems were pursuing no-till, because that's a regenerative concept, as mitigating, mechanical disturbance, but they were using chemical disturbance. They're spraying. There's the step where before you plant something, whatever's in the ground before it, you want to terminate so that it doesn't outcompete or shade or take water or whatever. And so, the conventional wisdom is you have to kill it. Whatever it is, you got to kill it. And so historically, you would till the hell out of it, turn it under, kill it, dig its roots up, and expose bare soil, and then plant something new and create an environment where that whatever you're planting can thrive. Well, if you say, hey, tillage is bad, don't till, then the alternative is, okay, well, then I'm going to chemically nuke it. I'm going to spray glyphosate or Roundup, as folks understand it, to chemically terminate a field and burn is the term, burn it all down chemically. And then now I have, again, nothing to outcompete what I'm going to come in behind and plant in the ground and then raise. And we're like, well, again, I go back to the consumer. I'm like, well, I don't like both of these. The first principle of regenerative agriculture is limit chemical and mechanical disturbance. So I'm not going to choose the lesser of evils long term. But in the near term, if I have to choose between these two systems, if I'm looking at a head of household or a mom or my own children, and I'm going to feed them a product. Do I want to feed them a product laced with chemicals, or I want to feed them a product that, had some level of tillage? And, the answer is like, I'm not fucking poisoning my family, and I'm not expecting Force of Nature's consumers to poison theirs. So we chose an organic feed supply to start the program, and are actively working on plans to begin to work with, okay, can we find people that are both using chemical-free systems and other regenerative practices like no-till and so on, and begin to build those, and then begin to explore seasonally, how do you find alternatives to the corn and soy. But it's so bad, and it's so big, and it's so hard that, it's the part of our program that is the least remarkable and disruptive and innovative. But I think the fundamental principles of our core value of feed others as you wish to be fed is like, we have a chemical free mandate. Like, we're just not allowing chemicals in the food systems in any place. And that's where we're starting.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, I remember having this conversation together about this exact thing, but it goes so much deeper than just like, we don't want, it's deeper than just finding somebody that's doing it chemical free and till free. It goes to the mill and like, can they segregate these things? Can they guarantee that they're not cross-contaminated in any capacity? And, like, it goes, and then how is that transported? And is the transportation free of those things? And it's testing of these things, and it just goes very, very deep. It's such a bigger system than anybody really realizes.
And I think, again, I want to be careful, right? Like, I don't think there's some evil farmer tapping his foot like, okay, you don't want me to spray? Haha, I'm gonna till the shit out of everything. I'm gonna make this look like the surface of the moon. Or like, oh, you don't want me to till? Haha, I can't wait to go buy all these chemicals to go spray. I think it's more like it's a mindset, and it's a degree of challenge. They're like, let's be reasonable here, people. Like, this is the way it has to be. One of these two things. I think some of it is conventional thinking, and some of it is just pragmatism because of the degree of challenge. But it's like, I'm not looking for a reasonable solution. I want to be breaking the mold and thinking unreasonably big, and taking on the challenge of like, okay, if there's nobody out there that sees the path of an easy glide path to doing this, then we're going to go take the hard path and we're going to forge it and open that opportunity for others to follow and build momentum there.
Someone was talking, I forgot who, someone came out to the ranch like in the last 2 weeks and was talking about a God tax. Do you remember this? Or was this a dream? It might have been a dream. But the idea was like, if you're, okay, so kind of like we're going to bridge a couple gaps, but if you're raising poultry outside and a bald eagle eats one of your chickens, that's fucking God tax. Take that. That's okay. But if you're raising your animals inside an industrialized barn and they're dying, that's like a demon tax. In a weird way. It's like a good system and an evil system. But then also when we're thinking about our land, it's like there's God tax. There's always taxes are inevitable. We're always going to pay for them. It's part of life. But like, what's the tax of tilling, right? Like maybe that's more of alignment with a God tax in the sense that like unintended consequences, degradation of a land, less healthy food. But when we spray land, I feel like we're just entering the category of a demonic tax where there's like multiple generations of suffering that happens on that landscape, on our bodies. I mean, our children's children will pay the consequences of us consuming pesticides, insecticides, herbicides.
It's awful. I mean, these agriculture chemicals are showing up in urine, blood, breast milk, organ tissue, brains.
Oh, I said rain, but brain too.
And rain.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're the dead zones in oceans and the toxic algae blooms in waterways and all the things. But yeah, like we have to move away from chemical warfare on nature. I mean, we talk about it often, but it's worth repeating here. Like, a food system that is based on the destruction of life is probably not a food system that you want to be relying on to promote your own life and well-being.
So can we just be super provocative and say the most controversial thing ever? Just stop skirting around it. Is chicken regenerative? Do we make a regenerative claim on our chicken?
Well, we haven't gone into living conditions.
We're kind of talking about feed, but let's just freaking go. Because that's kind of where our decision was made.
Yeah.
No, I think we do not and haven't historically made a regenerative claim on our chicken, even though our system exceeds the standards set by other companies and brands that make regenerative claims on their chickens. And I think that's a personal and an organizational decision, like to lead with integrity and to have high standards and ideals and not water them down to what's comfortable or easy. We wouldn't be in this if we didn't think that we could get it, A, start better than what's available, and B, get it to some place that nobody thought possible, and potentially getting to regenerative. But as we've already noted, like, you can't have a larger impact off farm that is clearly degenerative and use some cognitive bias to conveniently ignore that, put your blinders on and say, but look at what I'm doing on my farm. It's regenerative here. It can have, and our system and our birds can be having regenerative impacts on farm. I just think that that's naive at best to limit it there for convenience. I think that you have to look at the holistic system. You have to look net end to end, and that's what we're trying to do with our program, so that we can build to a place where we can say end to end, including in the dirty secret that nobody talks about, and the off farm impact in the feed, we're having a positive impact. And so no, we are not allowing our birds to be called regenerative, even though some folks are taking similar birds, or birds even in with less scrutiny and ideals built into the systems, and calling them regenerative. More power to them, and that they're independent people allowed to do their own things, but our standards are going to stay lofty.
I think it's disheartening that there's the kind of third-party credentialing bodies now that are verifying, validating regenerative claims on poultry. Like for me, like this is like the new greenwash. This is where we got to be super careful. And I mean, it'd be so easy for us to slap on a regenerative claim on a label and perceivably to a consumer have more value in our product, but we just disagree with that fundamentally. I don't know of another brand that sells meat, that sells chicken or poultry, that is aligned with us. We're kind of like the pariahs. We're kind of the only ones saying, don't eat chicken. Oh, we sell chicken, by the way, but eat more beef or bison. And we're the only ones saying, hey, we're doing like a fucking good job on chicken, but it's not regenerative. Like, don't lie to yourself.
We're doing better than anybody else, but it's not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to eat chicken, eat this, but you should eat less, and you should pay more for it.
I mean, even some of our farmers that we are sourcing our chickens from have their own brands, and they have third-party verification that they are regenerative, and they're not, because it's not it's not looking at it holistically. They are having positive impact on their land, but they are not having.
Which shouldn't be ignored. No,
we want to be working with them if they weren't having a positive impact on their land.
It's a good thing.
It's amazing.
And it's reasonable to be proud of the work done there, because again, the most industrial, the most commodity side of the system is so awful that they should be celebrated for all of the deviations and improvements and challenges that they take head on in order to create the system they have. It's just that however convenient and nice and from a business perspective helpful it would be to put all of these claims on our package, like I still am going to operate with integrity first and say, like, our standards are higher than that. Even if it makes the job tougher on us, that's fine. That's why we're having conversations like this.
We're not the only industry. It's like I think about the auto industry, and the push for electric vehicles is like reducing global emissions and whatever, less carbon in the atmosphere from combustion engines. But it's like we're not looking at the true cost accounting of that either. We're saying like, oh yeah, you got an electric vehicle, cool. Like you're not emitting emissions locally, but it's like, well, where'd that battery come from? And if there's a power plant burning coal that you're charging your vehicle from, and so like that's really what's happening with the poultry industry.
Yeah, it's getting graded on a curve a little bit, and because of the degree of challenge, folks all kind of accept and lean in on it. But we're raising the stakes, we're setting a higher bar, and we're not going to grade that on a curve.
Yeah,
I think may we jump into, is this a good time to just say, like, what is this program organic or not?
Yeah, absolutely.
It kind of feels like these concepts are related, and then we can jump into other parts of the protocol. But we're doing something really weird.
Very weird.
Non-traditional, unusual, disruptive. It makes some folks in the incumbency uncomfortable, but I think it's fucking cool as shit. So our birds are not organic, which is really difficult.
No, they are not certified organic.
Okay, so our birds are not USDA certified organic by a third party group. And it's like a big why. And particularly like our retail partners will ask us, because they're like, hey, like, you know, there's like these standard expectations in the market. If you want to compete, like it's antibiotic free, pastured, and organic are like the three big drivers, and chicken in particular. And we're kind of breaking the mold on a few of these claims, and for good reason, because I think they're misunderstood. I think they're misapplied. I don't think they're representing the best interest of consumers in a number of ways. And if we were to pursue an organic certified claim, it would not change our program. We meet the requirements of making an organic claim.
We exceed.
Every we dramatically exceed the requirements of making an organic claim, with the exception of we aren't paying third parties extra money to make our program more expensive to go audit the slaughter operations and audit the farms. And we aren't passing those additional costs on to consumers, and we aren't limiting our ability to supply and invite producers into our program. So like net, it wouldn't change the program. It wouldn't serve consumers. It wouldn't serve farmers, and it would limit the ability to scale doing good things. It seems overwhelmingly obvious which decision we should make, and it's to pursue the path that we're pursuing, again, even if it makes the job in the market harder. But we did something disruptive. We're launching the chicken with a front of pack claim that says organic fed. And again, a protocol that on the back end of it ensures that it's coming from a chemical-free system. No chemicals used in the barn or on the pastured or on the birds or in the feed. So again, it's a really difficult and unusual thing, but it's a path we chose, and it's something nobody's thought of. It's just like highlighting like, hey, the feed's organic and the birds are coming from a chemical-free system, and we're not paying to compete with an organic traditional form of an organic claim, but it exceeds all the standards that a consumer looking for an organic product would want.
And I think people who are looking for the organic seal don't really realize the dramatic differences. They have a vision for what that looks like.
Yeah, please elaborate on that. This was a learning we are experts. I hate using the word, but we've been doing this a long time. I feel like we stand on the shoulders of experts, but we've become experts. And even as experts, I feel like this just freaking blows my mind.
Okay. Do you want me to go like straight comparison, Force of Nature, organic here?
Oh, I was thinking of an anecdote where y'all went into an organic, highly regarded organic producer.
And
2 of the 3 people on our team
either threw up or had an asthma attack.
Yeah, inside of this industrial barn
that was organic, the highest standard of organic.
Pursuing some course to regenerative too, right?
Yes.
Certified regenerative, third party.
Had an application in for, a certified regenerative seal. And
pause. By the way, like, this is why we go do on-farm visits. Like, we don't just accept paperwork, because on paper, this place is the gold standard.
For sure. It's what everybody's buying for at
and
major
talking
retailers.
the talk and on interviews and in conversations, we're like, wow, this place is awesome. Now let's go check it out to make sure that it meets our standards. It passes the eyeball test, the Y test, the handshake test, all those things.
The throw up test.
So we're there.
Right. I think one of the most appalling things to me was there are that they could even that organic would certify them. When you dig in super deep, when you go visit these places, you see stuff that you wouldn't even picture in your head. So you're standing there and you're like, oh, this bedding. Tell me about this bedding. Is this bedding organic? I see these animals eating the bedding. No, that's not organic bedding. And I'm like, but they're eating it. This is a food source, apparently. Like, there's hay on the ground. There's pine shavings. There's these things, and it's all sprayed. Like, there's just these tiny little nuances that people don't really consider until they show up, and you think, it's organic, so there's no chemicals in the barn. But organic certified, there are permitted chemicals allowed inside of barns, and it's things that have the circle at the skull and crossbones in. Like, it's hazardous to our health and the health of the animals too. And I don't think anybody expects that. Everybody expects that it's like a pure clean bird.
Mm-hmm.
Or a pure clean animal,
we see that too with the antibiotics,
right?
Where if you see poultry labeled antibiotic free, it's up to 30%.
Yep.
Of that poultry,
and that's according to the USDA,
that has a labeled claim on pack that it's antibiotic free, actually has antibiotics, measurable amount of antibiotics in that bird that we are consuming.
In the meat, and if you consume them, it imparts the same characteristics of those antibiotics on you.
And so I mean, like, right there,
it's like taking a round of antibiotics.
It's nuking your microbiome, all the things you're trying to build that create the conditions for
Even
life.
when you pay a premium to buy something that says antibiotic free, chances are, a third of the time you're getting antibiotics in it, because it's a handshake and a piece of paperwork that says we didn't do it, and there's lying and cheating in the system.
Mm-hmm. So learning that, now we're testing all of our chicken.
Yeah, every
batch of birds.
Every batch, because if we're going to make a claim like that, we're going to make sure it's a real claim.
Right.
Which adds cost.
Which is why we have the most expensive
The
chicken on
right
the market.
thing to do.
Which is why you shouldn't buy chicken.
Mhm.
Just don't buy it. No, in really learning what these systems look like, whether it's pasture raised or organic or free range, there's all these different claims that elicit some type of vision in people's heads. Like consumers have like a vision for what free range looks like, or pasture raised looks like, or organic looks like. And unless you dive super deep into all of those things, you're going to be really disappointed.
No, you're going to be horrified and appalled.
Yeah, absolutely. As
our team was.
as I have been.
As our highly educated team was walking into a rigorously scrutinized plant for the first time and being totally shocked by what we saw. Again, like I said, it's the eyeball test, it's the consumer test. If a consumer standing shoulder to shoulder with us and walking through the life cycle of these animals, are they going to be excited and proud or disgusted? And it's like definitively disgusted at that step.
Absolutely. Yeah, so let's talk living environment, living conditions. So with our last supplier, we had a different vision than what we have now, actually. We've expanded our vision for what living conditions should look like. I would say the primary the primary similarity or value that we've kept is that birds should never be in confinement. But what that looks like in reality is our vision has shifted over the last 2 years as we've studied the chicken industry more.
Yeah, to Taylor's point, this is the part where somehow we have managed to make mortal enemies of otherwise aligned, good-intentioned people. Like in the poultry space and chicken in particular, there are like lines drawn, guns, out of holsters. This is like the hill that the hill people want to die on, the sword they're ready to fall on. Like it's amazing how much animosity and energy and angst is put into pasturing, management, housing of chickens. and then we have like these ideas that seem totally logical and reasonable, and the more we visit, the more rooted and appropriate they seem, and the more polarizing and disgruntled so many people get. So I'm excited to talk about it.
You want to take it? You want to just go?
Well, to Robby's, I think that's interesting, and this is just going to take a minute, but like every category of farmer and rancher, like there's this eerie similarity between what they're raising and their own behaviors. And the chicken industry, everyone that raises chickens are kind of a little bit act like a chicken.
No.
At a scale.
At
we're talking
scale.
about. They're like prey species. Like someone's coming to kill me. I'm in a defense mode all the time.
Yeah, that's a kind of a fair statement.
Mushroom
people
farmers,
I'm thinking about.
Mushroom farmers, chill.
Super chill.
Chill all day. Just want to chill. Sit back.
I don't know if I agree with you about chicken farmers, but I agree with I agree wholeheartedly on mushroom farmers.
Cattle guys, they're pretty chill. They like birds and grass. Corn guys, they're always like, when is it going to rain? Obsessed with the rain.
Yeah.
They like sitting.
Very high.
Tractors.
Yeah.
They love tractors.
High.
Like, is your tractor over $1 million? Psh, mine is. Anyway, sorry.
Haven't paid it off, but mine is definitely over $1 million.
So I think again, if we rewind the clock to where but the origins of where livestock and animal husbandry, chickens would have been raised in a multi-species system. They would have had barns, chicken coops where they'd be going in at night because they like to roost. They're jungle fowl historically. They want to be up off the ground. They want to be in the same place like turkeys. If you're a turkey hunter, they go to the tree that they roost in. They want to go back to that barn, feel safe, protected, and then you don't want to have 100,000 of them, and old McDonald couldn't handle it, nor could the system, and they'd over impact. So they'd be like in balance with their environment. And then we figured out the industrialization thing, and all of a sudden we figured out that we could put in an area the size of a football field, hundreds of thousands of birds at a time inside barns that have air handlers, and you need hazmat suits to go in, and entirely curated light, curated energy, curated food, curated medicine. We could fill them up with antibiotics to help sustain them in an incompatible environment. and to promote their growth, and then give them all the feeds and do all the things we talked about industrialization earlier. And so like there's a bunch of good folks out there trying to break away from that system and get the animals back outside. And there's two generally ways of doing that. One way is to create barns, or even to take some of those industrial barns that had existed and renovate them so that the sides open, so that the birds have a place to go roost. But then during the daytime, when the sun's out, the sides open, and now they can go out and range and forage and be on pasture and run around like chickens. And then at night they can go back in and be safe and have the doors closed off, and you're not going to get a fox in the hen house. Or there are these mobile coop systems where you have what looks like small barns or very large dog run type cages that have a bunch of chickens inside them, and somebody moves them every day or every week or on some periodic interval, and the birds stay inside and they're outside standing on the ground, and the walls and the ceiling move, and they're those systems almost always they're getting some type of sunlight or exposure through windows or walls or something, but they're definitely on ground. So those are the kind of like the three things that exist today: super industrial, or a fixed barn with the bird's ability to go outside, or these mobile range coops. And then of course, like there are like,
but even there's variety within those.
Totally. And even like on the fixed barn system, like you can call something cage free or free range just by putting windows or just by not confining them to singular cages. And so like I feel like those things are so co-opted. It's hard. I just consider that part of like a large fixed barn. Like if they're not going outside, or they're not legitimately having any semblance of a natural life cycle or lifestyle, then that's just part of the most industrial system. I'm not going to give you any benefit of the doubt.
Right.
So I think where we may make some pretty bold moves is we accept both, fixed barns that have pasture management plans and open the doors each day with a lot of rigorous requirements to make that superior for a variety of reasons, because there's risks with that. The risks are you're bullshit. It's just an industrial system. The doors open, the birds don't go outside, or it's too small, or the ground sucks, or whatever. There's no reason for them to go outside. There's no food, no water, no shade, no trees or bushes. So we do a lot of stuff to mitigate that. We'll talk about, and then we also accept the mobile range coops. I think that there's pros and cons to those. I think that they're outside, definitively they're on the land, but like roosting is an issue. Most of those are confined. The doors never open. They give themselves a pat on the back for being outside, rightfully, but they actually don't let them be free to roam and range and experience the opportunity to go outside, truly, not in confinement. And so we've sort of like chosen that we'll work with both systems, but we're going to do things to mitigate what we see as the downsides and to maximize what we see as the upsides. So happy to elaborate on that or pause for.
Yeah, no, I would love for you to go into what you said were rigorous requirements for.
So starting with the mobile range coops, because I think that it's the mobile range coop people that hate us the most.
Mm-hmm.
I think, historically and in our prior operation, we didn't work with mobile range coops because for a variety of reasons. One, they're predominantly using Cornish Cross birds, and we've seen how inappropriate
Cornish Cross
that
on
breed
pasture
is for that environment. We think it legitimately creates some welfare issues,
mm-hmm.
And a variety of other things. And so again, we're limiting the breed. We are no confinement ever. So, if we're going to work with you and you have a mobile range coop, we're going to require you to open the doors, and your immediate response is going to be like, well, what about predation? And it's like, to Taylor's point, that's the God tax, it's part of the reason why the program's more expensive. But like, when you have somebody out there, again, passing the consumer test shoulder to shoulder, do you want to see birds outside running around acting like chickens, or do you want to see them inside of a cage where the floor moves each day?
Right. And really uncomfortable on the ground. I mean, they don't really belong.
They're jungle fowl. They're supposed to be in trees, not on the ground. So we ask them we kind of impose some of the same requirements on them we do on fixed barns. It's like we make them put food and water outside to draw birds outside. We make them put enrichments, places for the birds to climb up and stand and perch on. We make them put shade structures, which help them protect them from extreme environmental conditions, but also from death from above and other forms of predation. And do that during daylight hours and open and close the doors. And obviously, like, death loss from predation is important because it doesn't just add cost. I mean, there's a welfare component to that too. But to me, like, again, if we're trying to emulate a natural system, like, that's part of a natural system, and surely you could have dogs or fences or other sort of mechanisms in place, but we don't require that. That's in their best interest to pursue. So we put some stipulations on those mobile coops that aren't common in the mobile coop system. And then I think on the same thing on the fixed barn system. Again, the number one critique of that is that the birds don't go outside or that they're over impacting the area. So we make sure that there's more food and more water than would be typical in one of those systems outside, so that there's enough to accommodate the size of the flock. We make sure that there is also everything I just listed before: perches, shade, protection, going on in those systems, so that it creates an incentive for birds to go outside. We make sure that there is an annual pasture management plan to ensure that there's green foliage and growing grasses, but also planting trees and bushes to create actual silvopasture type environment. We make sure on both systems that there is soil sampling and testing going on to make sure the birds aren't over impacting any areas, and that we can say that it's having a positive impact on the soil. We are making sure
there's adequate rest periods.
Thank you. That between flocks of birds, that you are giving months of time for the land itself to recover. Again, not to be over impacted, to allow it to recover. So there's a lot of things that we're doing that are atypical, that again add cost and make it more difficult and less traditional. But these are the areas that we're trying to be disruptive and trying to break the mold and trying to push the boundary by raising the bar up over what is common, comfortable, and already achieved.
I think we're pretty badass. That sounds awesome. I'm like, I'm buying it. I'll buy some chicken. I'll buy some expensive chicken now.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you believe in reincarnation, that if you get reincarnated as a chicken, that if you get reincarnated as a force of nature chicken, then like you lived a good previous life. Like, that's a reward. But if you get reincarnated as an industrial chicken, well, you were naughty.
There's other things too, right? I mean, and we already talked about the breed being a foundation. Like, that's why that's important. It's like, it has to be able to thrive on a non-industrial feed. It has to be able to be capable of going outside to do those things. Like, all of these things kind of support one another. We also have limitations on stocking density. So if you go down and you look at like the leading animal welfare standards or the organic standard or some of the leading regenerative standards, it's like, do you turn the air conditioner up or down? We require basically twice as much space per bird at their largest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's fairly complex and dense for just a regular person, but these are exceptional standards, I think is what you're getting at here.
Yep. We were, and not only do we require that like months long rest period, but we were also require that like when you put the birds back on, there has to be at least 75% coverage and active growth. And I mean, again, we go really, really deep into the nuance and the details. Once again, we took all the most popular claims and standards, third party or otherwise, and we made sure that we were meticulous in identifying what to adopt and what to exceed. Yeah. But nowhere do we fall short.
Katie, you've been out to all these suppliers. I mean,
sorry,
I want to know. Okay, after Robby, like, tell us about what you saw last trip to California.
All I was going to wrap up with just to say is on the free range versus pasture raised versus what we chose. Mm-hmm. The USDA sort of regulates the ability to make those claims. And as is the case with the bureaucracy, it's well-intentioned to try to, the consumer believes that these authorities and regulatory bodies are advocating for their interest. And oftentimes that gets co-opted and manipulated and doesn't deliver. Even with some recently updated standards late last year, they're still pretty hollow standards and also like misapplied. Like, pasture raising is appropriate for pasture animals like bison and beef that literally evolved through the millennia to range across grassland prairie systems. And, chickens, which are the descendants of red and green jungle fowl from Southeast Asia, aren't pasture animals. So it's a weird claim. Why does it even exist? Well, because in the consumer's mind, pasture is a premium and superior claim. They're familiar with it from ruminants and like beef. And so logically, we want to make a pastured claim on chicken. That sounds better. Great. It's like vegetarian fed. We always point out to everybody, like, vegetarian fed means it was never allowed outside. It was inside of a synthetic system, fed a synthetic food supply, highly curated. It should be a red flag, but it's become leveraged as a positive marketing claim because for a separate set of conversations and issues, consumers have been led to believe that vegetarian fed is somehow superior, and it applies on packaging of these meat items. Again, don't buy vegetarian fed meat, guys. That's a red flag. It's not a premium claim, even if we continue to fall victim to thinking otherwise. So anyway, pasture raised claim is the most premium in the eyes of the consumer, but it really doesn't. It's kind of inappropriate in some ways. So then, as a brand, you're like, well, what do I do? Do I do the right thing, or do I do the thing that's going to be most effective and working? And then it's like, because we allow for fixed barns, like, we're not technically raising birds on pasture 24/7, right? Like the mobile coop systems that we work with, they're standing on the ground all the time. I kind of see that as potentially in some ways a downside and a welfare risk because it's not species appropriate, but it is pastured. So there you go. Technically more pasture-y-ish, sort of. And then the fixed barn system is more like free range because the door's open and they can go out on pasture and they're raised on pasture when they're awake and when it's safe. But that's kind of where that, like, circular firing squad, guns, lines drawn, all those sorts of things come out. And technically it's also unfair because the free range claim could be made on a barn that just has windows and the chickens can stick their heads out of it and they never actually go outside on dirt or any of the other things. So it's like you got to choose between inappropriate extremes if you want to choose free range or pasture raised. And we're like, I don't like having to make choices that don't align with or agree with me. So how are we going to break the mold?
Or that are simply deceptive.
That are deceptive. That's like, it's not clear. It's inappropriate. It's not intuitive for consumers. So we were just like, fuck it. We're going to make up our own claim that I think ties in appropriate to these things. And so our claim is free to range with unrestricted access to pasture.
And that's the truth. Like, there's no other way of saying it.
It touches free range. It touches pasture. It's legitimate. It's intuitive. It checks all the boxes, and it's the most honest.
Yeah.
And so, like, we're really breaking the mold there, similarly to breaking the mold with making an organic fed claim versus having it be USDA certified and adding cost and limiting the potential of the program to do good.
Yeah. When you were talking about pasture raising chickens, it got me thinking about my last visit to one of our suppliers, and the chickens, the grass was so tall and so high that it was like a barrier for them. They wouldn't get past it. And so, it was like this eye-opening moment where we're working with our suppliers of like, hey, we want to encourage our chickens to be going very far out, but like with the grass is high, they won't. So you need to do some like mow lines or it kind of speaks to that pastured system. Like, do chickens belong in pasture if they're too scared to walk in pasture? Probably not. But like, if we can adjust the environment to where it's suitable for them, I mean, of course they would love to walk through tall grass with tall grass on their sides, so long as they had a nice path forward.
Mm-hmm. It's like when we go to the zoo, if you're, like, each animal in its own aquarium or setting kind of mimics the natural environment.
No.
But it tries to, invokes the sensation of it.
Okay.
It's synthetic. But like what we're talking about with chickens, it's like if we went to go see the monkeys and they were like, their habitat was a grassland.
Right.
Like, you just read it as wrong.
Right.
And you might not be like a expert on chickens or monkeys, but when you go to that setting and you're watching them with no canopy, no trees, just like something's off.
Wonder what's going on.
They're not
here.
being able to really express their full innate potential.
Right. So Taylor, you had asked, what is it like
Yeah, I mean, firsthand account. Like Robby said, we visit all of our suppliers. You've seen every single chicken supplier.
Well, I would say that the most important thing to note is that none of our suppliers are alike at all. Like everyone is so unique. They have such unique environments and ecological systems that their systems look completely different. It's just like how the system at Rome Ranch looks completely different than the system in California or wherever, even just a system down the road. And so we source from California, Texas, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania. And so as you can imagine, the ecology, the climate, et cetera, it all varies. And so some of our suppliers are on very rolling type of environments, whereas some are on flat farmland. And so the one thing that sort of reigns true between all of our suppliers would be that the birds are so healthy and so lively and so active. I would say that, like that rings true everywhere I've been. I've seen fighting between chickens. I've seen dust baths. I've seen sitting in trees. These are just truths between all of them, even though their systems look completely different. Well, yeah. What else?
Sniff test.
Sniff test.
I always teach the sniff test. Did it pass the sniff test of like
Well, we want it
off-gassing, disgusting smells? I mean, could you hear birds, insects?
Yeah, I mean, that's always what I always want to go somewhere and like take my shoes off and just like sit and process and feel it and feel the places that we source from. And we would never source from somewhere where I couldn't take my shoes off and hear birds. And it was pleasant aesthetically and to all of the senses.
I saw pictures of you holding birds too.
Yeah.
Which that's a good barometer too.
I mean, these birds were hard to catch because they
Yeah, that's a good point.
They were really hard to catch. And I kind of felt cruel trying to catch one, but I had to like really I had to be with them for a really long time until they would all surround me, and then I had to go for the legs. That's the only way I could get them. Otherwise, they were so agile, so quick. But they were so beautiful, and their feathers are so silky. And that part kind of blew my mind because, I mean, like I usually just touch turkeys all day, and our turkeys are quite lovely. But these chickens had the silkiest feathers I had ever felt. And I was like, what are you eating? What are you foraging on? I need some of this. So, working with our suppliers is a gift. It's a gift that these people are giving us to transform this food industry, and it doesn't go without saying that they're working their asses off. And in this partnership, it's not something that they have ever done before. Of course, they have expertise in raising animals, but the way that we are asking them to do it is very different than what they're used to.
It's a huge leap of faith that they're taking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really cool. For me, where the partners that I've visited, Tay, I think what's most exciting is that like, they're like, holy shit, this is going to be really hard. Like, so that to me passes like my internal gut check. Like, is this a layup or is this something more difficult where we actually really are pushing on the right things? And I think the feedback and the sentiment across our network of chicken growers is, wow, this is really hard. Y'all are pushing on some big things. We're excited to be a part of it. This probably exceeds what we're comfortable doing on our own, but the fact that y'all are doing it and putting your name behind it, and we're working, and it's not lost on them that there are counterparts within their industries and other parts of the country that are part of this. So there's like a shared sort of we're in it together to do things that everybody agrees on are important and challenging. And it's like none of us individually could do it on our own, but collectively it creates a mightier force for good. And so I think they're like, I'm always looking at what is your why? Are you trying to get more credit for the least effort? Or are you trying to do something really meaningful and earth-shattering and disruptive in a positive way? And I think they're excited to kind of break the paradigm and be a pioneer and forging a new path, which is what we're trying to accomplish.
I think a commonality too with all these suppliers that we source from is they're family operated, family run, which is really unique and really special. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the family that's making the decisions. It's not corporate overlords or shareholders that are squeezing profitability. It's like mom, dad, kids, grandkids coming together, sometimes multiple generation, knowing their own purpose, their own legacy, and honoring the animal as much as they do their own roots.
Yes, it's still agriculture. It is not like the rest of the chicken
Agribusiness.
industry that is agribusiness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, guys, is there anything else that you feel like we haven't touched on regarding chicken?
I'd say we didn't go into all of the detail on all of the element. Like the protocol is deeper in even more areas, and we talk about transportation and handling and lighting and, you know, again, lots and lots and lots of detail. I think eventually it's a big project to undertake, but we're going to put more and more of the protocol and, you know, transparency behind our supply chains, because we think they behoove us to be declared. Like, how do we distinguish and justify and separate ourselves from these commodified claims like we talked about on this call? So more of that to come over the course of the year. I think the only thing that we didn't touch on that I think is important on the chicken programs, we talked about health and nutrition and density, but we didn't talk about flavor. And I know that's kind of like one of y'all's favorite part. It's like almost like Mother Nature had this crazy plan to make healthy things taste really good.
Yeah. Why are you looking at me? I don't cook.
So like, I mean, the different animals and the different kingdoms of animals, there's different deltas between the industrial version and then the more natural version. And poultry in general is one of those that, like, the difference between a factory farmed freedom ranger at Chick-fil-A and then a force of nature bird is damn near a whole nother animal. I mean, the flavor is so rich that I feel like when people first eat it, they're in disbelief that it's even chicken. And it's like an internal knowing too. It's something that wakes up in them saying, yeah, my body needs this. It craves it. It's that favorite feedback loop. Like particularly, I'm not that, like interested in cooking chicken. I think a lot of times in the industrial chicken space, it's all about, what are you smothering that chicken with? What are you marinating it with? But the freaking chickens that we're making, guys, like,
they're so flavorful.
Just put a little sea salt on it, baby. Like, I don't even know if you need to add butter, which I think that goes a long way.
Morgan would say yes.
Brown butter, of course, for a chef, but it doesn't need it. It's not dry. It has moisture and flavor, and the skin is delectable. And so, yeah, I think that's really the ultimate test if we're doing a good job. How does it taste?
Because I mean, and for me, I mean, as much as flavor matters, I'm not like a huge foodie. I like, really, the most important thing to me is nutritional density. And so, flavor is nutritional density. Like those things go hand in hand. So the more nutritionally dense your food is, the more flavorful it naturally is. And so for me, like just consuming the chicken, like I know that it is rich with nutrients, simply based on how it tastes, because I am like a salt person and a little butter. But I think what's really exciting, something that I'm excited about in the future, is that we are going to start diving super deep into nutritional testing on all of our products, and looking at more than just the macronutrients, and looking at vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients and some of those other compounds, and seeing how that compares to conventional meat, and really like proving to our consumers, like you may be paying more for this, but you are getting more for this. You are getting more nutrition from this product. And not just in the nutrition format, but also, we talked about it a little bit, but we've been working on contaminant testing, ensuring that our products are free of toxins, contaminants, etc. And that's so important to me too, because as Robby talked about earlier, like the most important thing is the things that we put on our plates for our children. And they sure as hell better be free from any type of toxin, and full of nutrients.
Yeah, I think we've done a really good job the whole point of this is to educate, announce, and then again, really sort of distinguish the important characteristics of our program. And I think we've really laid out the foundations for the case that the chickens that we're raising and the partners that we're working with are that the system is better for the farmers, the system is better for the birds and their health, the system is better for consumers and their health, the system is better for the environment on the farm and off the farm. We spent, I don't know how long, over an hour talking about that. But like, I also think it's important to say that, and they taste freaking amazing.
Just better.
Like they are better in every meaningful way. And I think it reminds me of like a quote that I heard from Julia Childs, that proper chicken should be so good itself that is an absolute delight to eat perfectly plain with butter, a sauce, or to grill. And it's like, that's what chicken's supposed to be. And this industrial system has like lost sight of that. And to your point, Taylor, it's like protein carrier for whatever fry batter or wing sauce or sugar condiment that you're going to put on it. And there's like, it's like wet paper. I mean, it's cardboard. It's just like, it's just, there's no yumminess to it. And yet, like, if you need any more convincing than we choose turkey or birds to celebrate like our most cherished occasions, Thanksgiving, Christmas as a culture, at least here in the States, like that used to have that significance of being generous and important and flavorful and worthy of our greatest gatherings. And I think these chickens kind of reconnect with what chicken is supposed to be, better on all the other fronts, and then a reminder that it can actually be really tasty too.
Mm-hmm. Chicken drippings. If you roast one of our chickens, don't discard the drippings.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as good as it gets, and that's a testament. Is
schmaltz.
Like, yeah,
is that right?
You take care of the little things. The big things take care of themselves in this industrial system. A lot of the toxins are stored in the fat. Well, we're removing all of those negative compounds from our birds, so the fat is cherished and it is sacred. So baste your meat in it, drink it with a straw. Put it in the refrigerator, make little popsicles. Yeah, sweet potatoes. Feed it to your babies. I mean, who knows what you can do with it?
Broth.
Live forever.
Bones. Make the broth with the bones since they're so freaking healthy and strong. Yeah. We get our chef on here. Talk recipes.
Maybe one last, if we all have a parting message, I'll just say that, I think hyper-local chicken is badass. If you have like a local purveyor you have a relationship with at the farmer's market, someone who's raising like less than 100 birds in batches, like
and
support
it's not
that person.
Cornish Cross.
Yeah, it's not a Cornish Cross, and they're doing non-GMO feed, and they're thinking holistically, and it's available. I think we all are confident in saying you should probably go support that local artisan, and if they align with your values. But like this chicken program, for those who don't have continuous access to it, there's nothing that even compares in the market. So we're serving the needs of people who want to eat chicken, who desire to eat chicken, but don't have a local hookup.
I mean, we have a local hookup, but I still like ours better. Like it still tastes better.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both sentiments. Like all else equal, you should always support local, and frankly, like they're really struggling, and they really need that support. But I also think, listen to the last podcast we did called "The Truth About Chicken." Listen to this podcast and make sure that you understand what it is that you want and where your values are. And I wouldn't say scrutinize your local producer, but I would say just ask and understand where they're delivering and where they might be off, and get to know them and their why, and they're probably going to be right for you. But there's definitely, this is the chicken specifically is more complicated than beef or some of the other stuff out there. And there's a lot of places to go wrong. And I think it's like, to tangent that, I think chicken is like everything plant-based meat. Like it just gets a free pass. It gets the benefit of the doubt. We've been indoctrinated into thinking that chicken is better for you, better for the environment, better for welfare, and it's untrue on all three fronts. And we've been misled, and a higher level of understanding and scrutiny is warranted for something that is becoming the most prominently consumed protein in America at the expense of like the true heroes of beef and bison.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we have just put our heart and souls into this program this protocol, this new chicken program that we've launched. I feel like we literally have gone down every rabbit hole that we possibly could. Rabbit holes we didn't even know existed. And so I feel so proud to be offering this product. I always feel like I'm going to cry, you guys. Why am I crying? What am I crying? I'm crying about chicken. What's happening right now? I feel so proud of this program. And it's nowhere where it needs to be. Like we have so much work to do on the feed front and on the land front. But I feel like so proud that we can offer people something that's been pre-vetted for them. I just think that feels really good. It feels really good to find a brand or a product that you are like truly, truly believe in. And I really believe in this product. So don't buy it. It's too expensive. Go eat red meat instead. Yeah.